Okay, so have you ever gone to the grocery store, like maybe you just needed a carton of eggs, and you walk out feeling like you just bought a whole farm?
Yeah.
Prices are just going crazy.
I crowd pile.
Feels like you got to run faster and faster just to stay in the same place. One listener wrote in about this exact feeling. And what they found, well, let's just say it's a pretty interesting deep dive. They kind of stumbled onto this whole world of Bitcoin.
Interesting.
And no, not the I'm going to be a millionaire tomorrow kind of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
We're talking about something way deeper, like a whole different way of thinking about what money even is.
Yeah, see, this feeling of prices, always outrunning our paychecks, it's not just in our heads. It's this whole economic force, inflation, and the listener, they hit the nail on the head calling it a hidden thief. It's quietly draining away our purchasing power bit by bit.
Right. They use this analogy, a bucket of water, to explain it, and I gotta say, it really drives the point home.
So picture this. This bucket, it's everything you buy, right? Groceries, that new phone you've had your eye on, rent, the whole shebang. And your dollars, they're the cups you use to scoop from this bucket. Inflation.
Yeah.
Like someone sneaking up and just pouring more water into the bucket all the time. The water level looks about the same, but each cup, each dollar, it scoops out less because it's all been watered down.
So it's not just that stuff's getting more expensive. It's that the money we're using, it's losing its buying power.
Exactly. And these little differences, they add up big time over time. No wonder people feel like they're working harder but can't get ahead.
So when I moved to the city, everyone was all, oh, get ready for the cost of living. Back then, $5 got you a coffee and a pastry, no problem. Now, forget the pastry. That barely gets you a cup of plain coffee.
Oh, tell me about it.
It really shows you how this hidden tax, inflation, it just eats away at what we earn.
And it's not just about coffee and pastries. This affects everything. Rent, healthcare, saving for the future. It's harder to plan, harder to achieve your goals, all because of this constant erosion of what your money can buy.
It's true, and some folks try to beat it by investing, hoping the stock market will outpace inflation, or picking up extra gigs, stretching themselves thin just to stay afloat. But our listener, they were looking for something more, something that changes the game entirely.
And that's where this whole deep dive into Bitcoin comes in. But before we get into that, it's important to understand the traditional ways people try to combat inflation. Things like investing or picking up a side hustle. They often involve more work, more risk, and they don't really address the core issue.
This is where things get really interesting. Our listener, they didn't just want to outrun inflation. They wanted to understand it, like really get it.
Yeah.
And that led them to Bitcoin. I'll be honest. At first I thought, Bitcoin? Isn't that like a fad or something? But our listener, they weren't trying to get rich quick. They were looking for stability. Something that wouldn't just lose value overnight.
Right, and that's a crucial distinction with Bitcoin, you see. At its core, it's aiming to be a digital currency. But here's the kicker. It has a fixed supply. It's a direct challenge to how we usually think about money, with governments printing more whenever they want.
Okay, so break down this fixed supply thing for me. What does that even mean? And how does that make Bitcoin different?
Remember that bucket analogy from before? With dollars, euros, whatever. It's like the government's got this hose, always adding more water to the bucket that's the printing. But Bitcoin, it's like the bucket's got a lid on it, sealed tight. Only 21 million Bitcoins ever. That's it. That's built into the code, unchangeable.
Wow. So no matter what happens, recessions, whatever, there's a hard limit.
Exactly. And that scarcity, that's where things get interesting. See basic economics. When something's scarce but people want it, its value goes up. So while regular money can be printed into oblivion, Bitcoin, it's got that built-in protection.
So instead of your money becoming worthless over time, it could actually gain value. In a world where Bitcoin's the standard, I mean, that's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
It is, but it's not magic or anything Bitcoin's of value. It's still subject to the market, people's emotions, all that. It's not like some perfect system immune to everything.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So how do you even begin to measure Bitcoin's value? Like, I'm used to dollars and cents. How do you compare something that's trying to be fundamentally different?
Well, our listener found this story. It's kind of legendary in the Bitcoin world.
Oh.
The 10,000 Bitcoin pizza.
Oh, yeah. I think I heard about this.
Yeah.
Sounds kind of crazy. What happened?
So back in 2010, Bitcoin was brand new, right? This programmer, he buys 2 pizzas using Bitcoin, the total. 10,000 Bitcoins.
Wait, hold on. You're saying someone paid what's probably worth millions now, maybe more for pizza?
Yep, true story. It sounds insane now, but back then, Bitcoin was basically worthless. This was one of the first times someone used it to buy something real in the real world.
Okay, I need a second to process this. So this pizza story, as wild as it is, it shows how much Bitcoin's value has gone up compared to the dollar.
It illustrates the potential, for sure. But it's important to remember that's an extreme case. Bitcoin is known for being volatile. It goes up and down like a roller coaster. That's part of the deal.
Okay, but what does all this actually mean? If Bitcoin's not about getting rich off pizza, how does it work for the rest of us? Like actually using it as money, how does that work?
The $1 million question. Or should we say the 10,000 Bitcoin pizza question?
Huh.
But seriously, Bitcoin's still got a way to go. There's some real challenges, like regulation governments. They're still trying to figure out what to do with this whole decentralized money thing.
Right. Because with Bitcoin, There's no big bank in charge.
Yeah, exactly. And to a lot of Bitcoin fans, that's the whole point. Freedom from the system, you know? But it also makes things kind of messy. No one's really sure what the rules are, so it's harder for it to become, like, mainstream.
Our listener mentioned that, actually, the whole ease of use thing.
Oh, yeah, big time. It's getting easier to use, don't get me wrong. But it's still not as simple as, like, swiping your card. There's a learning curve. And making it faster, cheaper, especially for lots of people using it at once, that's still a work in progress.
So it's like huge potential, but some bumps in the road.
That's a good way to put it. Like the Wild West of money, right? Exciting, but kind of risky.
Speaking of risky, our listener was really open about that. They mentioned a 20% drop in their Bitcoin at one point.
Yeah.
Said it was pretty scary.
Yeah, volatility, that's the name of the game with Bitcoin, at least for now. You got to have a strong stomach for it. But for some people, the potential payoff, worth the risk.
So where does that leave us after all this? Is Bitcoin the future of money? I gotta know.
You know, it's tough to say. Could be revolutionary, could fizzle out. Only time will tell, right?
Our listener, at the very end of their message, they said something that stuck with me. Imagine a world where you have more control over your money's value. Isn't that worth exploring?
Powerful stuff, right? And whether Bitcoin is it or not, it's gotten people thinking about money, about technology, about who's really in control. It's a conversation starter for sure.
And that's what this deep dive's all about. We dug into inflation, explored this whole Bitcoin thing, the good, the bad, the whole deal. Now it's your turn. Do you feel good about a system where your money slowly evaporates? Or does this idea of decentralized, limited money like Bitcoin, even with the risks, does that get you thinking? No right answer, just food for thought. Because once you understand the rules of the game, you can make smarter choices about your own financial future. And hey, maybe even help shape what that future looks like.